continuing from the last video, yeah, as said before. So then at the end of the short-term goals, so you're looking at probably a couple months in, a good probably 3-4 months in now, you're looking at introducing some tackling, some physical rucking, stuff along those lines, just to get that injury tested under some real pressure, and then complete a low contact training game, so a game with perhaps some restrictions on maybe rucking and that, but yet you're still getting that body to body contact, testing that muscle, that injury out, and just seeing how it holds up. And then participating in the partial training session, so you're doing everything, all the contact, everything bar the actual potential game at the end with full contact. And then looking at medium term goals, you're then looking at completing a full training session. So then you're completing everything. The injury, is back to nearly where it was before, until you're fit enough to then move on to being on the bench for potentially. You're not going to look back at straight away going back into the first team. You're going to look at being on the bench potentially for the reserves, the second team, just so it's the lowest intensity, a lowest standard, just so you're able to test it in a high pressure situation, but still with a little less intensity than perhaps there will be completing a whole game for the first team, sort of thing. So then you do move on to a whole game with the reserves. And then obviously you follow this up to integrating yourself back into the first team. So firstly, getting yourself back on the bench, playing maybe a half or sort of thing, in that high intensity, high pressured situation. And then finally you move on to, working your way back into the first team. So then looking in a bit more depth for what could be done, activities wise, during the different phases of recovery, the functional phase, the strengthening phase, the sport specific stage. So, looking at, looking through, functional movement stage, the first exercise we're going to look at is a wobble board lunge. So this will really test the ACL, the muscles around the ACL, and the ability to the range of movement that it's got. So you're going to do this on a wobble board to start with. Obviously, this is creating some movement there. So it's extra movement. It's meaning that the muscles and the joints are having to work really hard in order to sustain the movement and go through that range of movement. And then looking at what you could do if that was potentially too painful or that caused discomfort, because at the end of the day you don't want to be causing a muscle or putting your muscle in through any your injury, for any discomfort if you're doing these movements. So the -1 move back you could do is just taking away the wobble board, just doing a lunge, so you're more stable. There's less pressure to being caused by the wobble board. And then furthermore, if this is still painful, then go to an assisted lunge. So just have someone helping you. Just have someone just there just to take you down as far as you can go, as deep as you can go into the lunge before calling it starting again, sort of thing. And then looking at adding more difficulty to it, so you could reverse the wobble board, so you have less of a surface area and it will be more wobbly. This will make it harder for the muscle the leg, the injury to take on the strain of this exercise. And then finally you could add some weight. Obviously this is going to be if you really aren't feeling any any pain at all. There's no discomfort at all. And then adding some weight just to start strengthening the leg. And reps wise, you're going to be looking at possibly 10 to 12 reps for 4 sets. And then I would suggest a 30-second break in between. Moving on to the next movement, and that will be, again, an assisted wobble board squat. So again, you're putting yourself under the pressure of having to maintain your balance and your stability while taking on the movement. So this is really going to test sort of your proprioception within the injury, and checking that you can really maintain the movement while being put under pressure. Again, taking it back, remove the wobble board to make it easier if there's discomfort, and then again get someone to help you assisted squat to ensure that you just go as low as you can before you start feeling discomfort. Similarly, again, turn over the wobble board so that it's more wobbly, there's more movement, you have to maintain your balance better. And then finally, again, add some weights. This is likely to be with a barbell. And then this will obviously add to the strain being put on the muscle. Again, look for sort of 10 to 12 reps, 4 sets, and then 30-second rest. And then finally, box jumps. So looking at testing the jumping ability, the ability to jump off the floor, to test the pressure, put some range of movement on that, so squatting down to then jump back up. And the way you would make this easier is line the height. If the participant's having to work too hard to spring up and jump up, and it's too high, then they make it lower, so they're still going through the motion, the movement, but they're not having to put as much effort in to get up if they're in pain. And then remove the boxes completely and just do some hops, like almost jumps, box jump techniques, but do them just laterally along the floor, if this is still causing you pain. And then to make this more difficult, obviously you can increase the height. For this, it's going to be slightly different because it's more of a maximal effort activity almost, so you're having to put a bit more effort in. You're only going to be looking at 4 reps to a set, and you're going to be looking for longer rest. With the others, even with the weighted stuff, you're not going to really go massively heavy during the functional movement stage. Moving on to the strengthening exercises and the Bulgarian lunges. So these will be when you got the bench behind you and you're lunging down with dumbbell in either hand. And then similarly again, when you're feeling pain, if the participant begins to feel pain in the injured area or discomfort, then try and have some assistance while potentially maintaining the weight. So just have someone balancing in you, holding to you, so as soon as you get to the point where it's too painful, you're just brought back up, and you're again able to carry on with doing the movement. And then to make it even easier, if this is still too hard, eliminate the weight and just do a Bulgarian lunge. Obviously you can then take it back a step further and have assisted no weight lunge, Bulgarian lunges. And then to make it harder, if the participant is still not feeling a great much of satisfaction by doing the Bulgarian lunges, add more weight. And then furthermore, you can progress these to walking lunges. So instead of just being static on the bench, you could then get to moving forward, lunging forward, moving over a certain distance potentially. And again, you're going to look for 10 to reps for 4 sets, 30 seconds. And then for the weighted squats, you're going to be looking, this is going to be more maximal stuff. So the other stuff with the balance board, when you are adding weights during the functional section, that's not going to be maximal. This is going to be more maximal. if they're finding this too difficult, obviously get some assistance, some help to help guide you down. And then obviously again remove the weight. With this, you can then add more weight if it's too easy to you're sort of going maximally. And you're going to again look for 10 to 12 reps, 4 sets, 30 seconds. And then finally for the strengthening section, you're going to look at weighted calf raises. So these are going to hopefully test the area of injury. And to make these easier, obviously there's only going to really be one way you can make these easier, as that will be removing the weight. As it's an upwards movement, you can't really ask for assistance because you're not dipping deep into a lunge or squat. You're raising up onto the balls of your feet, onto your calves, and putting those under some tension. So obviously removing the weight will be the only way of doing this. And then you can add more weight. Or you could do the exercise from a height. So you're starting from a height and you're having to that puts more strain on the movement, makes the movement harder. And that is one way you could potentially increase the difficulty of this movement. And again, for all of these, look for 10 reps for 4 sets and 30 seconds. Moving on to the sport-specific stuff. Before we mention this, these are sort of no sets or reps. These are looking to work for a time period rather than sets. So I think for all of these, the time period will roughly be about 1 minute 30. The first exercise is sidestepping through cones. As you got injured doing this before, this will be a good one to get back onto, as it will really test if the ACL is sort of back fit, back working. If he begins to feels pain throughout this, then remove it, doing it at speed through the cones, and slow the movement down so they're just focusing on the movement, maybe having jumping from side to side sort of thing. And then to make it harder, you could add a defender with a tackle pad. So they're having to power off into the tackle pad, putting the leg under more strain. And then finally add a live defender. So this could lead to a tackle situation occurring, the leg, the knee area, the ACL being tackled. And this will just put more strain, more pressure on the leg, and will really test if it's improved. Next, a one-on-one tackling drill. So defenders holding pads, so you'd be tackling the pad. This will involve the participant having to get low, having to put a lot of pressure on the leg, the injured area, as they happen to dip down low. Again, if this movement causes too much pain, this lowering into the tackle situation, then practice just getting in the position, slow it down, just drop into the position, don't run into it, because obviously the exercise originally will be running into it. Just drop into the pad and tackle it. And then remove the tackle pad so the participant is able to put on some footwork. That will just mean that the participant might have to change direction when looking to make the tackle, again putting more pressure on that injury. And then finally adding some rocking after the tackle, so the participant makes the tackle and then has to spring to his feet, testing the leg strength to then get over the ball and compete with another player. And then finally rocking against an opposition with a tackle pad, so getting down low, getting over the ball, making sure they're planting their legs, they're planting their feet to get into that strong position to then drive the participant off the ball. It's going to test the legs, it's going to test the knee area and the ACL area, as these are going to be put under great strength because a lot of the stability is coming from this area. Then obviously if this isn't working, if it's too painful, just practice holding the position, getting down into the position, have no pressure put against you. And then if it's too easy, there's no pressure being placed on the injury. you feel like you could go better, remove the tackle pads and have a live rucker against you. This is obviously going to be harder because it's more maximal. And then have the active defender in a competitive situation, so full game basically, rucking,